Good afternoon. Happy Tuesday, everybody. My name's Maria. Welcome to my channel. I'm just sitting here doing some crocheting, and I thought I would talk a little bit about the Lindsey Clancy case and maybe even talk about Rob Weiner, his son Nick, and the psychosis and the legal definition and different states and how they look for what's what and what's going on with the trial that has everybody fascinated right now. I have a lot of questions left, but I want to say regarding Lindsey Clancy and her three beautiful children and Patrick, I have been all over on this case for 3 years. I've really looked at the timeline, the testimony, the original testimony, now the testimony again, the witnesses they've called, the DNA, and for a long while I believed Lindsay did this, and then I shifted to something didn't make sense here, that maybe Patrick got tired of a very needy wife at that point that wasn't able to meet his needs because they were not they were not reconnected in a physical way yet, and she was sleeping in the basement, he was sleeping in the bedroom, and just the pandemic and all the stress that comes with having a new baby and making it all work and all. So I went to the other side, and then these are the things I couldn't get past. In the video where Patrick enters the takeout food restaurant, he is CVS. He's wearing what looks to be white or beige off-white sneakers. And when he walks into the takeout place, I think it's called 3V's, he's definitely in brown boots. Now, there have been actual news people like Chris Como and just other people out here that have said, if you look at that video really closely, it's kind of grainy, it's kind of a bad video quality, and we don't really know if those are boots or the same shoes, could be the angle, blah, blah, blah. And I just have to stop right there and say, no. If you look at the moving video and you slow down that video of him moving, he is in brown boots in one location and tennis shoes in another. Not only that, he's in a totally different jacket. They're both zip up. One is completely zipped up and it looks a little heavier, the texture you can see on it, and the other one is kind of like a little thinner. So now I have to come back to reason and critical thinking. If Lindsay is saying she did it, the thought going in that direction was she had to have been drugged so bad, dosed. Maybe Patrick was the voice that was saying, you only have a little bit of time to kill yourself. Go, get the children. Kill them first, then jump out the window. I'll be right back. Whatever. You had to think that if you were going to go with that. You had to also think he had been planning, met his future wife, who is a knockout twin. She's like a Lindsay 2.0. She's a doctor. She's not a nurse. She's a doctor. She's an OBGYN who specializes in infertility issues but has a interest in postpartum. So maybe through all of their struggle and Patrick having to go back and forth to New York for his Microsoft job, which makes sense, on short trips, maybe he met his future wife and he started talking about his wife having postpartum. And they struck up a conversation and they met. If you were going that direction, you would have to say, okay, they were dating. Lindsay decided she can't be intimate with Patrick because there was no way she could have another baby yet. She didn't feel like she could connect with him, blah, blah, blah. She had insomnia so bad that she was restless. She didn't want to keep him awake, so she was going to go in the basement. Okay. But what I really couldn't get past is there was no Lindsay DNA on the yellow exercise band. So it excluded Lindsay. So it had the child that died and other children's stuff on their DNA, and it had Patrick's, but not Lindsay. So that's probably one of the hardest points that I had to overcome. But then I had to look at, it was a family, they all used the basement, it was an exercise room, it was a playroom. Who knows? What I know now is coming back to critical thinking. If I'm on the jury and I only have the evidence before me, I am not finding Lindsay guilty. I'm finding, where the hell is her OBGYN through all this? Where? I am finding her 1-month-old psychiatrist at fault. I am finding her plethora of psychiatrists at fault. Medical negligence. Over-medicated. I am finding McLean at fault, because where was the discharging social worker? Why didn't the discharging social worker, well, why did they discharge her? If she really was honest and told them she had thoughts of hurting herself and her kids, but she went in for benzo to come down off the Ativan and the diazepam. So she went in to come down off that and down off the Seroquel, very heavy drugs. And there's no way she would have come down off of all that in 5 days. No. She would go into withdrawal from benzos 3 days after taking her last benzo. So maybe they started tapering her off of things, which it sounds like they did. They brought her down to 50 milligrams of Seroquel. She was not done. So what McLean should have done is given her a day pass to go to her daughter Cora's birthday and plan it, be with her family, and bring her back to the hospital. That's what you do. You don't release the person. You certainly don't release the person without services, follow-up, to transition from the hospital home still withdrawing. Where was the homemaker? Where was the nurse, the visiting nurse, and the medically necessary homemaker? They had good insurance. Okay, so maybe the discharge social worker said, okay, you got your parents there, you've got your daughter's birthday coming up that you want to be there for, your husband's there, your whole family's coming in, your sister's coming in, and her sister is a social worker, a certified social worker, who is mandated by law to report. So her sister knew Lindsay had suicidal thoughts and bad feelings about the children, like something was going on, like something was going to happen to the children, something bad that she couldn't control, or that she was going to do, or somebody was going to do, something was going to happen to the children. But now we know that her mother was on the stand saying that she even said she felt like she could harm the children. To them, to the mother, the sister, and the father. Okay, so her mother is to the point where she's staying at the house, and Lindsay's afraid to even sleep alone. The mother is crawling in the bed with her, hugging her. She doesn't know what she's afraid of. She's afraid to be alone. Okay. She's afraid to drive. The mother is driving. We're not talking about agoraphobia. She's afraid that people, in her mind, she thinks people can know something about her when she's driving. She's feeling exposed, and this is not generalized anxiety disorder that her 1-month-old psychiatrist, said. This is not. This is clearly postpartum and entering into psychosis, which you don't know first is what came first, the chicken or the egg. What was it? The tsunami of hormones that every woman has flood back to them within 1 to 3 months. Actually within the first 24 hours to 3 months. And then once it hits, if it hits wrong, it's like, I would say, like a storm surge that keeps going on for up to a year. So a woman needs that fourth trimester care. Where was the OBGYN? Where was the nurse practitioner in the OBGYN? Why did she have to go online and find, oh no, I know, pandemic, but this family was totally dropped on their ass. They were not given the support they need from anyone. She had to do telemedicine. I'm not saying telemedicine is wrong. We need telemedicine in the future. It's been very helpful. It's helpful to a lot of people. What I'm saying is there comes a point you need to be one-on-one with a therapist, and the therapist needs to see you and sit with you and make that connection to treat the whole person. And then there didn't seem to be any kind of, probably because of the HIPAA law, no communication to the family. They didn't have time. If you're in a mental health facility on a weekend, like you commit yourself on New Year's Eve, there's nobody there other than an attending doctor, a couple of nurses that are filling in, and a social worker that's floating on the floor. That's it. A few technicians. So their job basically is to make sure you get structured, make sure you stay alive, so check in on you, 15-minute checks, just checking. Make sure you get your medication, you're tapering down off the schedule the doctor wrote. You're going to your mindful, grounding, fun things like finger painting, pottery, journaling, dance, stretching. You're getting your exercise, you're getting your cooking, you're getting your food, and you're getting back to bed. You're getting on structure again. You're getting into a routine. And that's what she was doing. And you're going to your support. You're going to your little group sessions. You're learning about your depression. You're learning about withdrawing. And those are your classes. So you're in your little support, back to go eat, go back to your room, rest a little bit, visit with family if you want to, meet with your doctor. It's like how did the night go? That kind of thing. Okay? And Lindsay full well knew this, being a nurse. She knew this is what she's going to be doing. But yeah, to me, there was a lack of follow-up care. There was a lack of any kind of help for the children, even though they had a nanny in the house. Patrick had let that nanny go because Lindsay was not going to return to work, and the nanny was there for Patrick, not for Lindsay, for mostly for the baby, because Patrick worked at home and Lindsay would have been going back to work. But once Lindsay wasn't going to go back to work, they didn't need the nanny. But once she went into McLean, what they did need is a social worker and a case manager to follow her home. And not a discharge, a day pass, until she was totally safely off the medications and doing well. So that's where I'm at now. So in the beginning, I really was like, oh my God, who could do this, right? And here's the other thing, is everyone is talking online about how, well, she looked fine. We don't know what psychosis looks like. We know what the media has shown us, and what have my videos always been about. The media misportrays, sensationalizes everything. So we think psychosis looks like a person is walking around with a tinfoil hat on and talking gibberish, or raging with the strength of the Incredible Hulk, right? And not able to make any sense at all. Actually, a person in psychosis can make perfect sense to the point where all the what ifs are gone. They're on a mission to complete what they need to do. And they believe they need to do it. It's not an outside voice. It's not like all this visionary outside stuff is coming in, although that can be part of psychosis. What we definitely know about psychosis is you can be snapping, breaking in and out of reality, and perfectly be dissociated from what you do, or perfectly aware of what you're doing, and then not remember it. So you can plan, you can organize. So there's been this thought of like, well, if a person is in psychosis, they can't plan and organize what they're going to do. Yes, you can. Because you're following a false belief that is so loud in your head that is really just your worry personified into a voice. Now it's become an auditory command hallucination inside, because your worry, your intrusive thought, has not stopped. That is not generalized anxiety disorder, although you can have very loud thoughts with generalized anxiety that add to the anxiety and the worry. Like, I don't know, I guess if you were driving and you were really afraid of bridges or something, and you really got nervous when you had to go over a bridge, the whole time you could be driving, you could be thinking, I'm gonna swerve over that bridge, I'm gonna end up in the water, I'm gonna end up in the water. You could be thinking that, and it comes through as a voice that won't go away in your head. It's a loud thought. It's you. It's your brain turning on you. And add to that sleep deprivation. She went 48 hours without sleeping. She wasn't getting more than 2 hours sleep any night. Sleep deprivation is used to torture people. So I just think people are missing the point of how much sleep we really do need, and rest, and how much hormones play into this. Also, isn't there some kind of testing that we could do, screening? And what are the implications of that? Of, at a certain point, is there a certain amount of hormones that could get to be too much colliding when a woman is saying they're getting depressed? Wouldn't you go for hormone tests? Wouldn't there be blood work drawn that could show hormones are all wackadoodle right now? This is definitely post baby related, right? Postpartum. And there'd be some kind of screening. Not that you would want to be putting a mother on an antidepressant, but maybe get some help into the home. Maybe a couple more doctor appointments so they can talk about it, get them into therapy a little sooner. When I look at the amount of medications that were prescribed for Lindsay, it breaks my heart, because any of those could cause a psychosis. Getting on them, adjusting, or coming off of them. So my questions will be, why didn't her sister mandate report, knowing that she had just come from McLean's? Why didn't her sister call and say, hey, you got to get my sister back in because she's not doing well? But instead she asked her sister, but are you safe? And then talked to Patrick. So, and I'm sure she's living with that regret. And she did all she really could do as a mandated reporter. But I guess I would have gone further. I know people in my family would have gone further. So this was a family that was overwrought with taking care of Lindsay and taking care of the children. And Patrick's family, too, was also taking care of Lindsay and the children when her parents couldn't. And so I just feel that McLean's is responsible. I feel like her psychiatrist, who prescribed the most for her, who was the least experienced, was very responsible. And that the civil suit, there will be no problem getting the civil suit. If I'm on that jury right now, it's a hung jury, because I'm not going to be able to say that Lindsay was responsible. Mm-mm. There were lots of people responsible. Did she? Nobody questions, did she? I did. I did. For a little while I went down the rabbit hole, but I came up for air and critically thought, wait a minute. And then more testimony came out. So as more evidence comes out, maybe they'll be able to explain the DNA on the one yellow band that does not have Lindsay's DNA on it, which just doesn't make sense to me. Maybe they'll be able to explain, why did he change his shoes? Why did Patrick change his shoes? Why did he stay out in the snow with her as long as he did? And why did the police allow him to go into the house to find his children without a policeman following him? Why? Why was the EMS and police, first responders out there, hearing him scream from inside? Why weren't they with him? So there's things that just don't add up, sure. But there's a lot of things that are coming together now that are making me think this family was just totally dropped on their head. And 3 children are dead. And she will never walk again. And she will always, always grieve over these children. And the thing is, she could get on her medication and get perfectly fine again. I think I was watching, it was maybe Chris Cuomo was interviewing Randy Yates. And Randy said, Andrea, the difference is Andrea had severe mental health before she had the children. She actually was in catatonic states after 2 of her children's births. So she had postpartum before she had more children, which a lot of people are like, well, why did she keep having children? Okay, I don't know. But Randy stood by her, and he even said Andrea had been severely mentally ill and had episodes, and they were always able to get her on the right dose of medication, and then she would be fine again. And even now in the hospital, he is advocating, even though he moved on and got married, got divorced, just like Patrick, he hung with Andrea a little longer in his grief, blaming himself because she was having mental distress and an illness that was documented and in a clear catatonic state that one would say, okay, she was in psychosis. She didn't plan. But again, what Randy said is that even after all these years, Andrea could be doing fine on the dose of medication and the cocktail they have her on. And she's wonderful. She's back to Andrea. But then it turns on her and the medicine doesn't work anymore. So they have to find a new dose, a new thing to add. And then she's okay again. So that's more of a mental illness than a snap psychosis that happens with postpartum. But we don't know. Once postpartum psychosis hits, does it go away? Or are you always going to be worried about the person having that break in reality? So those are the questions I have. I think we need a lot more obstetrical care right within those first 24 hours. The first year after the baby's born, any of that time period, it could happen. So it's rare that it's a psychosis. It's usually a depression and anxiety and inability to bond with your child or to take care of yourself or your child. But yeah, it's real. So that's my thoughts about it. And then speaking of Nick Reiner, the difference I see with Nick Reiner is, from what Rob always said, is that he had challenges from a young child as early as preschool. Like, Nick was always their child that if they told him to go one way, he went the other way. If they told him don't drink a lot, he drank more. If they told him don't use that drug too much, he did in excess. So he had a situation going on where the more you told him don't, the more he did. And he was in rehab 17, 18 times? And so now you don't know what came first with him, if all the drug usage brought on the schizoaffective disorder, or he always had schizoaffective disorder from young and he used the drugs to mask it. But it sure looks like a sane person walking away from the house with his backpack, just walking down the road. And then in court, he looks totally out of it. But he's with it enough to want his trust fund that his parents were guarding for him because he was under a guardianship. Totally different kinds of psychoses. So if he wants to plead insanity, I don't think he's going to get it. Don't think so. I think he did plan. Yeah, I think he did. But I think it was more of a rage reaction with Nick. I think he just maybe went in to confront his parents about money and decided to kill them. These are the things that keep us awake at night. How do you know? So, there's that. And I wanted to tell y'all, if you want a really cool pattern for autumn decorating, this is called the Solist bunting. And you make a whole bunch of these and you connect them by single crocheting. And you do like about 25 chains to 4, whatever you want. I'd say about 25 chains in between. Connect them. You could put something in between them. You could put hearts. You can put sunflowers, or you can leave them just like this. It's called the Solist bunting. And I got the pattern on Ravelry. It said free download, but then when I went to Ravelry, it was $2.50. It's totally worth the $2.50. I like to make things like this. I have a bunting on my Christmas tree that is now a theme tree with hearts on it. This would be perfect for autumn to put sunflowers in between, or just plain. It would work great over in a garden. It would work great over an entrance to a wedding, an outdoor wedding, whatever, a celebration, an altar, a moon altar, a prayer altar, any of those things you could put it over. And then, you know what, if you put them together, obviously, if you put them together, if you just kept going in the round with what you're doing, you'd have a little circle. You could make a tablecloth. So these are really I love working with, I just call them doily things. So the pattern is by Emma at Lulu Crochet. Let me see, I get her name on there. Yep. The picture. Emma Escott. Let me put my glasses on. My bad pair of glasses. I have a good pair of glasses and a bad pair. I can kind of see out of these. I can't see out of the other ones. Soulless bunting. Soulless bunting. And I'm going to block it, pin it, block it. Emma Escott. EMMAESCOTT. She used paint box yarns, cotton DK 100% cotton, but I went to buy it and it said it had a wool blend in it, so I don't work with wool. She used champagne white. I guess you could use any cotton you want or any acrylic. She used a 4.0 G-hook and 4 worsted weight. It's 6 rows, very simple. It's written in UK. So all you really need to know how to do in the US is a single crochet, a double crochet, a bobble stitch, and a puff stitch. So it's made by, of course, you're making like a crescent, like a half moon, like a half of a circle. It starts out looking very much like a fan would look. And then that's all you're doing is chaining, single crocheting, and pulling up loops and pulling through loops for your V-puffs. And a V-puff is this stitch right here. So it's a puff stitch followed by a chain going into the same stitch with another puff stitch. And it's called a V-puff. A bobble, I like to compare a bobble to a peacoat because it's basically the same idea, only it's a lot more you're doing a bobble stitch and you're slip stitching to close it off. And you're closing it off with a chain, and then you're closing it off with a slip stitch to make it bobble. Very simple. I'll show you the bobble stitch, in fact, because I'm getting ready to do one here. Then you just assemble them together. So I said I would crochet in this, so I will. So you're going to chain 6 and go into your 4th chain from the hook. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Or what you could do is just count up 2 chains and go into that chain there. And pull up a loop. And you're just basically doing a double crochet, but not completing it by pulling through the 2. So now you're going around again, pulling through 2. That's 2 times. Round again, pulling through 2. And you got 4 on the hook, and around again. And when you get 5 on the hook, you got 5 right there, you're going to pull through all 5, and then you're going to close off that stitch by making a chain, and then you're going to come back. If we left it just like this, it would just be a flat shell. So we're going to go into the stitch and slip stitch it closed, and now it's a bobble. And then we're going to chain 3 and connect it to the previous row where we chained 4. So you're just going into the little spaces and single crochet. That's it. So single crochet, double crochet, puff stitch, bobble stitch, very simple, and I'll list the pattern where you can get it. And that's my thoughts. I just want to say we can change our mind. Nobody should be chastising us, telling us, well, you're stupid to think that, you're just being conspiratorial. No. If you're on the jury, you're going back and forth. You're thinking, wait a minute. And that's what you're doing when you're deliberating. You're going back and forth. You're thinking, well, why did Patrick do this? Well, why? Look at the video. Why is he wearing 2 different shirts? Okay. If they don't feel like they have to explain that, I'm sure the question will come up in the deliberations. But I'm saying I hold McLean responsible. I hold her. Yes, she did the act. And yes, it looked really weird. The timeline with the original testimony and now more testimony. There seems to be some retractions. There seems to be I cannot recall. Well, where people can't recall, they're reminding them. This was your original testimony, and they're like, okay. So waiting for all the facts really does matter here. And for Lindsay's own mom to say she told us, the family, her sister, her mother, her father, I'm afraid I'm going to hurt the kids. She was afraid of many things. That's not just anxiety. That's a good dose of paranoia setting in and not being able to control your mind. And over again, some people are saying, well, she kept saying, this is not me. She kept writing, this is not me. It's not. That is what a psychosis is. You don't recognize yourself anymore. You're like, I know this is wrong, but I can't stop doing it. Can you reason in a psychosis? Yes. Yes. This is what we need to change, is the media idea of psychosis and what psychosis really is. People can look perfectly fine. They're not always shuffling. They're not always in catatonia. They're not always rocking back and forth. They're not always banging their head. They're not always screaming primal screams. They can be very sedate and just look like they're questioning their own thoughts. When you're having a conversation with a person in a psychosis, it's kind of, you can realize they didn't hear what you said. They're hearing something else. If you really pay attention to their faith, there could be a lot of questioning going on, and you can see it You can see it in their eyes. You can see them going back and forth in their mind, like they're overthinking it. But then there's just people that overthink. So we can't, it's very hard to say. And I do believe there's blood work that would show the deluge of hormones colliding that a woman who just carried a baby 9 months would have after giving birth. We're just not there yet, but I believe there could be testing for it. And definitely, day passed for Cora's birthday. Return to the hospital until you're totally weaned off the medication and stable. 21 days, not 5 days, 21. And you got to fight for that with insurance. You got to fight for it. And then home, but with support, not with just your mom there once in a while, or your mother-in-law, or your sister dropping in out of town. No. Visiting nurse, caseworker, homemaker as needed. That's what we got to get back to. Okay, have a nice day. Those are my thoughts. I hope you'll make this pattern, and I got to scoot to work. Bye-bye.